The Missionary module allows staff members who raise personal support to log into their own web page to view only their donors' pledge and gift information. The data that they see is live and up to date. They're able to run reports that show them their fundraising progress and donor history. It also gives them their own version of Name Segmenter to produce targeted mailing lists. There are 3 videos on this topic: Setup, the Missionary page, and Missionary Name Segmenter. The initial setup video is intended for the home office. The last 2 videos target the missionary and will prepare them to get the most from their web page. We use the term missionary. However, the module can be used by anyone who has a need to manage personal fundraising or those who only need to view a selected set of data. As we move through the videos, I'll use the term, but remember that it can apply to anyone. Setup begins with a fund code. It is primarily what links gifts and names to the missionary. So your first step is to create at least 1 fund code per missionary, and you can have up to 7 per missionary if needed. So if a missionary is responsible for fundraising for multiple funds, you can also link those to the missionary. Once a fund code has been created, you are ready to create the missionary record. To do that, click on the Missionaries button here on the left, then click on Missionaries. Here we see a list of the missionary records already created in the training company. I'll click on Add New to create a new record. We'll start with the first and last name fields and come back to the fields at the top later. Obviously, these 2 fields are pretty self-explanatory. Enter an email address then below and give the record a missionary code. This is the field that identifies the record for Denari, so it can be simple, but it must be unique. Some people just use some combination of the missionary's name with a first initial or something like that. Enter a login name. This is the username that the missionary will use to log into their web page. Give them a password by clicking the Change Missionary Password link. That opens a little window where you can either give them a new password or change an old one. And both of these fields are case sensitive, so you want to make sure that you pass that information on to the missionary. Some missionaries work in sensitive areas where it's dangerous to be identified as a missionary. You can use the online alias field to show a different name on the missionary page. If someone happens to be looking over their shoulder, they will see a different name. If the alias field is left blank, Denari will use the first and last names. Also, the missionary page says field agent at the top of the page. The term missionary is not used anywhere on that page. The next set of fields is where you'll enter at least 1 missionary fund code. But as you can see, you can enter up to 7 codes. You can click the search icon on the right to select them. From this point forward, any gift made using one of these fund codes will cause Denari to link that donor to this missionary, and that gift will show up on the missionary page. You will also need an appeal code for each missionary. When a donor creates a pledge through your web page, Denari will use the appeal in that pledge. That appeal needs to be linked to a campaign, and the campaign is linked to a letter body. If the pledge is being paid by credit card or EFT, that is the letter body that Denari will use when it creates the gift record, and that letter body will then appear on the receipt when you run those. I know that's a little complicated, so let me say that again. The appeal is linked to the campaign. The campaign is linked to a letter, and that is the letter used in the gift record for credit card and EFT automatic donations. So having a separate appeal code for each missionary allows you to have a separate letter for each missionary. The missionary thank you letter here is used when a one-time gift is created through online community for the missionary. So this is the letter again that will appear on the receipt ultimately for one-time gifts. The missionary classification field is optional but can be used to identify donors who are associated with this missionary. They may not have given a gift, but they may still want to be on the list, and they may give a gift in the future. You can create a classification for that missionary and then select it here, and then assign it to each of those donors. We'll talk about what to do with that in a few minutes. The jurisdiction field is used to indicate ownership of a name record. Usually, the field gives you the ability to create mailing lists for specific missionaries, but also lets you see at a glance on the donor's name page that they belong to this missionary. The monthly goal and monthly cash fields need to have a number there, but they are only informational. Denari doesn't track donations compared to the goal, and these fields don't appear on any report. They simply let management know what the set amounts are, and you can really use them or not, but you do need to populate that field. The next three fields, country, work type, and the missionary photo, are used on the online community page. The missionary module can be integrated into your online community page. If that feature is turned on, the missionary records you create here will show automatically in online community, and these three fields will show up on a page that shows the big list of your missionaries. Country and work type are also used as search criteria. The donor then can search for missionaries in a specific country or doing a specific work type. These aren't required fields, however, so we can use them or not use them, and we can remove them from the online community template if needed. The short description and full description fields can also be used on the online community pages. You can enter a paragraph or two about the missionary in either of these fields, and we can place them on the online community page. By default, the full description field is used on that page that shows just the one missionary, and this is typically the field where you will enter the longest description if there is more than one, but we can use either one of these two fields where we need to use them. The shopping cart description field is used when a donor makes a one-time gift through online community. Denari sends a confirmation email to the donor and includes the contents of this field to remind the donor of their donation. Usually, you'll just put the missionary's name here. At this point, as mentioned earlier, any gift entered into Denari with one of the 7 fund codes will automatically cause the donor to be linked to this missionary moving forward. But what about gifts that have come in prior to setting this up? For that, simply click the Fund button here on the right. Denari will run a routine that goes back through all of your gifts to find the ones with this missionary's fund codes and make the link between the donor and the missionary. You should only have to run this once because moving forward, as I said, new gifts will show up and link the donor to that missionary. But what about people who have never given a gift to this missionary but want to be on the missionary's list? As mentioned earlier, you can create a classification and assign it to those name records. Then select the missionary's classification here in the form, and then finally click on the classification button here in the quick actions section. Again, Denari will find the names with that classification and link them to this missionary. We've been talking about linking name records to missionaries. We can do it here with the Fund and Classification button, but we can also do it manually. Let's look at that. We'll click on the Names button here on the left, then Name List Management, and I'll just select a name record here at random. Now, click on Missionary Lists on the right. On the left side, we see a list of the missionaries that have been set up. We can click on one and then click the arrow to move it to the right. Now, when the missionary logs in, they will see this name in their list, whether they've given a gift or not. When you click the Fund and Classification button, as we just talked about, this is really what's happening. Denari is moving the missionary from the left to the right to make that connection. Of course, you can do this manually whenever you want. If someone were to call or email and ask to be added to a missionary's list, you could simply come here and make that connection. When a new missionary joins your staff, they may come with a list of names. You can import those names and have them linked automatically to that missionary. So let's go back to the missionary record. I'll click the missionaries button again on the left and then missionaries. And I'm just going to select one that's already here. Here we find the import button on the right. When I click that, the page shows me the fields that can be used for the Excel spreadsheet import. Set up your spreadsheet with the field names here in the first row, one per column. And as the text says here, it is in specific order, so you have to set them up in this order. Once your spreadsheet is ready to go, click on Select an Excel Spreadsheet, and it will walk you through the process of browsing for and selecting the spreadsheet. Then you can click the Import Spreadsheet button here on the right. The names will be imported and those names will be linked to this missionary. One note here, your spreadsheet must be saved in an older version of Excel that uses the XLS extension. Denari will not recognize the newer Excel extension with XLSX. When a missionary logs into their page, which you'll see in the next video, they are able to make changes to address, phone number, emails, etc. by default. Those changes are made to your live Denari data. The change they make in their page is made in your name records. Some organizations like that because it reduces the workload for the office staff. Some organizations do not like that because they're afraid that their missionaries might make mistakes and would prefer that be controlled by office staff. If you're the latter, you can click the gear icon and then move down to Setup. And on the right side of this page, you'll find the Limit Missionary Editing. Checking this will prevent the missionaries from making those changes in the data. And while we're here, we also have the Missionary DOM field. DOM stands for Day of the Month. When the missionary logs into their page, they will see a field that shows the donations for 1 month. The month that they see starts with the day you put here. If your salary month starts on the 5th and runs through the 4th of the next month, for example, you'll put a 5 here. The missionary can change the dates temporarily, but they will return back to the default when they log in again. One last topic in setup is categories. I'll click the missionaries button again, and now I'll click Missionary Categories. Categories in the missionary module are similar to classifications in the central office data in that they are a way to categorize names usually for mailing purposes. A big difference, however, is that the missionaries all share the same ones and they are limited to just 20. And they are set up by the central office on this page. So you will need to agree on which 20 your missionaries will use. Some examples that you might use are family, friends, major donor, etc. Again, they are primarily used for mailing lists, so you'll need to think along those lines. This concludes the setup video for the missionary module. If you have any questions, you can contact tech support through the help button at the top of the page.